Greece. Table of Contents, Greece.
All about Greece, including Athens, with visiting and touring information, geography, history, attractions, and other points of interest.
Dr. Sydney Soclof. drsydney22@gmail.com. 2023. Narration by Dr. Sydney Soclof.
Zoe Phonemes.
And Nathan Koltov. For a complete discussion of YouTube navigation, please go to tiny.1/ytnavigator. Chapter 1. Greece. Greece.
This is the flag of Greece.
Greece is officially the Hellenic Republic, or in Greek, Elliniki Demokratia.
Greece lies at the juncture of Europe, Asia, and Africa. It is heir to the heritages of classical Greece, the Byzantine Empire, and nearly 4 centuries of Ottoman rule. It was very influential in Europe, Northern Africa, and the Middle East.
Greece is regarded as the cradle of Western civilization, and as being the birthplace of democracy, Western philosophy, the Olympic Games, Western literature, political science, major scientific principles, and drama, including both tragedy and comedy.
Today, Greece is a developed country, a member of the European Union since 1981, and a member of the Economic and Monetary Union of the European Union since 2001.
Where is Greece?
Greece is in the eastern Mediterranean, just to the east of Italy, and to the west of Turkey.
Greece is bounded on the west by the Ionian Sea, and on the east by the Aegean Sea.
Greece is bounded on the north by Albania, Macedonia, and Bulgaria. Directly to the east across the Aegean Sea is Turkey. The island of Crete is part of Greece.
To the south of mainland Greece is the Sea of Crete, and beyond that is the larger Mediterranean Sea.
Greece has a population of 11 million.
Among countries of the world, Greece is in 75th place, just below Serbia in population, and just above Portugal and Belgium.
Greece's largest cities are Athens, 3.2 million, Thessaloniki, 1 million, Patra, 250,000, Larissa, 210,000, Heraklion, 190,000, and Volos, 152,000.
Here is the population of the principal cities of Greece. The population of Greece is, however, very unevenly distributed, with almost half residing in the Athens-Piraeus metropolitan area.
These are the principal regions of Greece. Athens is in the region of central Greece called Attica.
Greece is mountainous, and it has a craggy mainland jutting out into the sea at the southern end of the Balkans. 4/5 of Greece consists of mountains or hills, making the country one of the most mountainous in Europe.
Western Greece contains several lakes and wetlands, and it is dominated by the Pindus mountain range. The Pindus has a maximum elevation of 8,648 feet, or 2,636 meters.
The Pindus Mountains in Greece are an extension of the Dinaric Alps, which runs from the Alps of Switzerland, down the Balkans, through Greece.
The Peloponnesus Peninsula is separated from the mainland by the canal cutting across the Isthmus of Corinth.
The Corinth Canal cuts through the Isthmus of Corinth, separating the Peloponnesian Peninsula from the Greek mainland, effectively making the peninsula an island.
This is the Aegean Sea between Greece and Turkey.
The Aegean Sea contains the numerous islands of the Grecian archipelago.
Greece also has around 3,000 islands, including Crete, the Dodecanese off the coast of Turkey, the Cycladic groups of the Aegean Sea, and the Ionian Sea Islands.
Greece has the 10th longest coastline in the world, with over 9,300 miles, or 15,000 kilometers.
Here again are some of the regions on the mainland of Greece. Athens is in the region of Attica.
Much of the population of Greece is concentrated in the region of Attica surrounding Athens, and in the adjacent region of central Greece.
Here is a view of Mount Olympus with an elevation of 9,577 feet, or 2,919 meters.
Mount Olympus is located here, about 200 miles north of Athens.
This shows the Pindus Mountains and Mount Olympus.
Most of Greece is mountainous, and the main flat lands and agricultural areas are in the regions of Thessaly, Central Macedonia, and Thrace. They constitute key economic regions, as they are among the few places suitable for agriculture in the country.
Athens, or in Greek, Athena, is the capital, and by far the largest city of Greece. Athens dominates the economic, cultural, and political life of modern Greece.
Athens was founded in the 9th century BC. Many buildings from antiquity still stand in the modern city. The structure pictured here is the Odeon of Herodes Atticus on the southwest slope of the Acropolis. It was built in the 2nd century BC by Greek scholar Herodes Atticus.
Athens is a sprawling city, located on the Attic plain of southeastern Greece.
Mountains rise in a semicircle around Athens. Piraeus, the port of Athens, is on the part of the Aegean Sea called the Saronic Gulf.
Piraeus is the seaport for Athens, and is 5 miles, or 8 kilometers, southwest of the center of Athens.
Athens is often called the cradle of Western civilization, for its momentous cultural achievements during the 5th and 4th centuries BC.
Athens still holds a wealth of ancient buildings, monuments, and artworks from the classical age of ancient Greece.
Athens also has museums devoted to Greek art, culture, and history. Many of the cultural highlights of Athens were renovated in preparation for the 2004 Summer Olympic Games.
The Greater Athens Piraeus metropolitan area has a population of about 4 million. Nearly half of the total population of Greece of 11 million.
Athens expanded rapidly during the 20th century, and today covers nearly the entire Attic plain in addition to ethnic Greeks. The Athens region is home to many thousands of immigrants.
By another measure, the Athens Piraeus metropolitan area, or agglomeration, ranks in 93rd place in the world with a population of 3.5 million, just a little larger than Rome, or Minneapolis in the USA.
Over 60% of the industry of the entire country is in the Athens area. The high population density has contributed to urban problems such as traffic congestion, air pollution, and overcrowding.
The religious affiliation in Athens is overwhelmingly Greek Orthodox Christian. There are also small numbers of Roman Catholics, Protestants, and Jews.
About 100,000 Muslims live in the Athens area, mostly immigrants from Albania and the Balkan Peninsula, with others from countries in the Middle East, Asia, and Africa.
The main language spoken in Athens is Greek. English is commonly used as a second language.
A large portion of industrial activity in Greece is concentrated in and around Athens. More than 2/3 of the current workforce in Athens is employed in services, including government administration, banking, education, healthcare, and transportation.
The city's port at Piraeus is the country's most important shipping and transportation center.
The Greek commercial fleet is the largest in the world, and almost all of the main shipping companies have offices in Piraeus.
Here are the rankings of the world merchant fleet by country of ownership in millions of DWT, or deadweight tons. We see that Greece is indeed the leader, followed by Japan, Norway, and the United States.
Recent construction related to the 2004 Olympics, including modernization of the city's transportation system, has provided a significant economic boost to Athens. Tourism is of major importance to the city's economy.
The history of Athens and Greece.
The history of Greece is important to understanding the origin and development of the Mesopotamian, Egyptian, Phoenician, Jewish, Greek, Latin, Arab, Persian, and Turkish cultures, and hence is important to understanding the development of Western civilization, as we understand it today.
Some of the most ancient civilizations flourished around the Mediterranean. It was opened as a highway for commerce by merchants trading from Phoenicia, Carthage, Greece, Sicily, and Rome, and were rivals for dominance of its shores and trade.
The shores of Greece's Aegean Sea saw the emergence of the first advanced civilizations in Europe, whose impact is inseparable from today's Western institutions and Western cultural and political development.
At around 1000 BC there emerged across the Greek peninsula and islands, polis, or city-states, each with their own distinct social and governmental infrastructure. They united under Athens and Sparta to repel Persian advances.
Athens, or Athena in ancient Greek, and Athena in modern Greek, is said to be named for the Greek goddess Athena.
Athena was the ancient city's divine protector, represented for centuries by a giant seated bronze statue, Athena Prometheus, near the entrance to the Acropolis,
and by a standing ivory and gold statue, Athena Parthenos, inside the Parthenon. Both of these statues are now destroyed. The main temple to Athena on the Acropolis, the Parthenon, also served as the city's treasury, and it became the crowning symbol of ancient Greek civilization.
In the mid-9th century BC, the surrounding territory, including the nearby seaport of Piraeus, was incorporated into the city-state of Athens. Solon became archon, or chief magistrate of Athens in 594 BC, and instituted sweeping reforms that many consider to be the foundations of Athenian democracy.
In 560 BC, the tyrant Pisistratus, supported by the aristocracy, gained control of Athens.
During the Persian Wars, 490 to 479 BC, the Persian Empire attempted to conquer the Greek city-states.
The Athenian leader, Themistocles, defeated the Persian invaders at the decisive naval battle of Salamis. He then began to restore the city, building walls around both Athens and Piraeus.
Themistocles also began construction of the long walls, connecting Athens with the port. His work was continued by Pericles around 450 BC.
Pericles took control of Athens in 461 BC, and was responsible for making Athens most prominent among the Greek city-states.
Pericles built many new structures, including the Parthenon on the Acropolis.
Pericles, more than any other democratic leader, made Athens a great city. His period in office is often called the Golden Age of Athens, or the Age of Pericles. Public funds were used to build the Parthenon, the Temple of Nike, the Erechtheum, and other great monuments.
Pericles developed the Agora, or marketplace, which began to display imported goods from around the known world, and he further fortified the protective walls that connected the city to Piraeus.
As head of the Delian League of Greek city-states, Athens was now an imperial power. Its courts tried legal disputes from all over the Aegean region.
Under Pericles, Athens experienced an extraordinary cultural flowering. Great tragedies and comedies were produced in the theater of Dionysos.
Among the famous figures active in Athens at the time were the architects Callicrates and Attinus, the sculptors Phidias and Alcamenes, the painters Polygnotus and Apollodorus, the historians Herodotus and Thucydides, the philosophers Anaxagoras and Protagoras, and the dramatists Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, and Aristophanes.
At its height, the population of Athens was perhaps 200,000 people, of whom 50,000 males were citizens. The rest, including women, foreigners, and slaves, were not granted citizenship. Military service and property ownership were the two basic conditions for citizenship in Athens.
When freeborn males turned 18, they were required to attend military school for 2 years, after which they became full-fledged citizens of Athens. Thereafter, they could be called for military duty until they reached the age of 60.
Athens dominated the Greek city-states in the 5th century BC, leading the Delian League, and counting other city-states as allies. Rival Sparta led the smaller Spartan Confederacy.
The imperial policies and ambitions of Athens, however, helped bring on the destructive Peloponnesian War, 431–404 BC, with arch-rival Sparta.
Athens lost the war, leaving it temporarily weakened.
During the conflict, the Spartans ravaged the surrounding countryside, while Athenians held out behind their city's walls. The walls allowed food and supplies from the port at Piraeus to reach the city.
The final defeat of Athens came in 405 BC at the naval battle of Aegispotami, and the city surrendered in 404 BC. The victorious Spartans imposed their own leadership, and they removed most of the city's fortifications, including the long walls.
Importantly, Sparta chose not to destroy Athens itself, nor enslave its inhabitants. Athens survived the war, but had lost its empire and its democracy.
In a famous incident, the great Greek philosopher Socrates was put on trial in 399 BC, and forced to take his own life when he questioned traditional ideas.
In the 4th century BC, influential schools were founded by the philosophers Plato and Aristotle, and Demosthenes, Isocrates, Lysias, and others, made rhetoric a fine art.
To the north of Greece, in Macedon, Greek technological and organizational skill was forged with a long history of cavalry warfare. Philip II of Macedonia, father of Alexander the Great, defeated the Athenians, and in 338 BC, becoming the master of Greece.
Despite losing its independence to Macedonia, Athens remained an important cultural center and symbol of Greek civilization.
Within a century, the Greek city-states had been united under the rule of Alexander the Great, and fought against the Persians.
Under Alexander the Great, the Greeks defeated the Persian forces and conquered their empire, which included Egypt and the Phoenician lands.
The major centers of Mediterranean civilization became part of Alexander's empire.
After the death of Alexander in 323 BC, his short-lived empire quickly disintegrated, and the Middle East, Egypt, and Greece were soon again independent kingdoms under his successors. Nevertheless, Alexander's conquest spread Greek knowledge and ideas throughout the region.
Athens, along with most of Greece, fell to the Roman Empire in 146 BC. Athenians, however, maintained good relations with the Romans.
The establishment of Roman rule in 146 BC did not break the continuity of Hellenistic society and culture, which remained essentially unchanged until the advent of Christianity.
Roman rule did mark the end of Greek political independence. The Greek peninsula became a province of Rome, while Greek culture continued to dominate the eastern Mediterranean.
Athens remained a center of learning for prominent Greeks and Romans from the 1st century BC until the 6th century AD.
St. Paul arrived in Athens in 51 AD to preach Christianity. He reportedly debated with the city's pagan philosophers, an event commemorated by a bronze plaque on the Areopagus.
When the Roman Empire finally split in two, the Eastern Roman Empire, known as the Empire of the Greeks, and later as the Byzantine Empire and centered around Constantinople, known in ancient times as Byzantium, remained Greek in nature, encompassing Greece itself.
During the Byzantine imperial period, Greece experienced fluctuating fortunes, but succeeded in assimilating most of its new invaders into the Greek culture.
After the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476, Greece became part of the Byzantine Empire, successor to the Eastern Roman Empire in 529 AD. The Christian Byzantine Emperor, Justinian I, closed the pagan philosophical schools, virtually ending the classical tradition of Athens.
During the Byzantine period, Athens became a cultural backwater. Many of the city's artworks were moved to Constantinople, present-day Istanbul, and the temples became Christian churches.
Byzantine emperors occasionally visited Athens, but the city was largely ignored and impoverished. After the Crusaders conquered Constantinople in 1204, Athens became a French feudal duchy.
In 1453, the Byzantine Empire ended with the fall of Constantinople. Soon after that, the Ottoman Turks conquered Greece and much of the Balkans.
The Ottoman Empire gained complete control of Athens in 1458 after the capture of Constantinople in 1453, and the conquest of the Balkan Peninsula. Under Ottoman rule, Athens was still run by Greeks, and had a mixed population of Turks, Greeks, and Slavs.
The Parthenon, built as the major temple of the goddess Athena, and later converted to a Christian church, was made into a Muslim mosque.
The Parthenon was badly damaged in 1687, when a Venetian bombardment ignited gunpowder that had been stored inside the building.
Greece remained part of the Ottoman Empire for some 400 years. In 1821, the Greeks rebelled, declaring their strong will for independence.
The Greek War of Independence ended in 1829, when the newly formed Greek state was finally created and recognized.
In 1830, Yanis Kapodistrias, a Greek who had served as the Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs, was chosen as the president of the new republic. However, the republic was soon dissolved, and a monarchy was put in its place.
The first king of Greece was King Otto I, of the Bavarian House of Wittelsbach.
The Greek War of Independence had liberated Athens from Ottoman rule, and made it the capital of modern Greece. When Athens was first liberated, its population was only 6,000.
Athens was largely rebuilt during the reign of King Otto I, 1832 to 1862, by German architects, notably Edward Schaubert.
Before its emergence as a major European commercial and industrial center in the 20th century, Athens was important mainly as a tourist destination, celebrated for its ancient monuments.
In 1843, King Otto was forced, as a result of an uprising, to grant his subjects a constitution and a representative assembly.
Otto was deposed in 1863, to be replaced by a Danish prince, who took the name George I of Greece, and brought with him the Ionian Islands as a coronation gift from Britain.
The Corinth Canal was dug under the leadership of Ferdinand de Lesseps, after his successful completion of the Suez Canal in 1869. Construction lasted from 1881 to 1893, and was one of the largest construction projects in Europe, and of significant commercial importance.
In 1896, the Olympic Games were revived in Athens, and hailed a success.
As a result of the Balkan Wars of 1912 to 1913, Greece annexed a substantial amount of territory from Turkey, including Crete, Chios, Samos, most of Epirus and southern Macedonia, including Thessaloniki.
Greece joined the Allied powers in World War I, 1914 to 1918.
Under the 1923 Treaty of Lausanne that determined the borders of modern Turkey, more than 1 million Christian Greeks were forced to leave Asia Minor. Many settled in Athens, rapidly expanding the city's population.
World War II, 1939 to 1945.
During the night of October 28, 1940, the Italian dictator Mussolini demanded that Greece surrender all its arms and allow Axis troops to invade the country.
The Greek government under Yanis Metaxas gave what became known as the simple negative response of no, thereby immediately siding with the Allies.
Italian troops poured over from southern Albania, but were foiled by significantly outnumbered Greek forces at the Albanian front, giving the Allies their first victory against the Axis powers.
A prolonged period of fierce fighting in the Pindus Mountains followed, in which Mussolini's forces were successfully pushed back.
During World War II, German forces occupied Athens in 1941 and set up a collaborationist regime. The economy of Athens was devastated, and shortages and famine led to starvation for thousands of the city's inhabitants.
Greek partisan resistance to the occupation was fierce, often with bitter retaliation from the occupiers. Greek resistance is believed to have forced a delay in German plans to initiate invasion against the Soviet Union, thereby extending that campaign into the punishing Russian winter.
Germany retained its grip on Greece until October 12, 1944, when its troops finally withdrew after the landing of Allied forces in Athens. The Jewish community of Thessaloniki suffered the heaviest toll by far, and the economy languished.
British and Greek troops liberated Athens in October 1944 without major combat. However, armed clashes broke out in the city in December 1944 between communist-led rebels and the new British-backed Greek government.
The bitter civil war between the Greek Democratic Army and the Hellenic Army lasted until 1949, when left-wing forces were defeated. The fighting occurred mainly in the northern regions of Greece away from Athens.
Thanks to aid from the United States, the city's economy improved rapidly after the end of the Civil War, bringing an influx of new inhabitants from impoverished and war-ravaged rural areas.
Points of interest in Athens.
Here are points of interest in Central Athens.
Here are more points of interest in Central Athens.
Here are even more points of interest in Central Athens.
Points of interest in Central Athens.
This is Syntagma Square, the main square in Athens, and the Syntagma, or Parliament Building.
This is the Greek Parliament Building.
Here is another view of Syntagma Square and the Parliament Building. A major metro stop and transfer point is located here.
This is a view of Parliament Building from Syntagma Square.
This is the National Garden that is next to the Parliament Building.
This is the National Garden.
Chapter 15. The Acropolis of Athens is a flat-topped rock that rises 512 feet or 150 meters above sea level.
The Acropolis of Athens is the best-known Acropolis, meaning high city, in Greece.
Although there are many other acropoli in Greece, the significance of the Acropolis of Athens is that it is commonly known as the Acropolis without qualification.
The Acropolis is the most famous feature of Athens. It is capped with the ruins of ancient temples, monuments, and works of art. The ruins include temples such as the Parthenon, the Erechtheum, and the Temple of Athena Nike, as well as the Propylaea.
All these ruins date to the 5th century BC, and each is considered a masterpiece of classical Greek architecture.
Chapter 16. The Parthenon is one of the finest examples of classical Greek architecture. It was built about 2,500 years ago as a temple to Athena, the Greek goddess of wisdom.
The Propylaea is a monumental marble gateway that provides the main entrance to the Acropolis.
Here are monuments of the 5th century BC on the Acropolis.
This is an 1846 painting of the Acropolis and the Propylaea by Leo von Klinzy.
A frieze, or horizontal band of sculpture, ran around the central chamber of the Parthenon.
The frieze depicts the Panathenaic procession, an important religious event in ancient Athens during which a sacred peplus, or gown, was carried up the Acropolis and offered to the goddess Athena.
The Erechtheum is an Ionic temple on Athens' Acropolis, north of the Parthenon.
The porch's entablature, or top, is supported by 6 statues of maidens, called caryatids, instead of columns.
Sculptures from the Erechtheum, the Parthenon, and other buildings of ancient Athens are preserved as the Aegean marbles in the British Museum in London.
The Temple of Athena Nike is part of the Acropolis, and was built around 420 BC. It is an excellent example of a classical temple.
Ionic columns are taller and more slender than Doric columns, and are topped by capitals that resemble scrolls. The Ionic columns shown here are part of the Propylaea, 437 to 432 BC, a monumental gateway to the Acropolis.
These are some monuments of the 4th century BC on the Acropolis. The
Dionysos Theater was the most important theater in ancient Greece. It is considered to be birthplace of the ancient Greek theater. It is cut into the southern cliff face slope of the Acropolis, and was the first theater built of stone.
This shows the location of the Theater of Dionysus and the Theater of Herodes Atticus on the Acropolis.
The ruins that can be seen today are, in part, those of a much bigger structure, built by the Romans in 4th century BC, to replace and enlarge the earlier theater. The new theater seated 17,064 rows of seats, 20 of which survive.
The Dionysos Theater is named after Dionysus, the Greek god of wine and ecstasy.
The famous classical tragedies of Aeschylus, Sophocles and Euripides had their premiere here in the Dionysos Theater.
In ancient Greece, an Asclepieion was a healing temple, sacred to the god Asclepius. Since snakes were sacred to Asclepius, they were often used in healing rituals.
Non-poisonous snakes were left to crawl on the floor in dormitories where the sick and injured slept.
Starting about 300 BC, the cult of Asclepius became increasingly popular. Pilgrims flocked to Asclepiia to be healed.
The pilgrims slept overnight and reported their dreams to a priest the following day. He prescribed a cure, often a visit to the baths or a gymnasium.
These are some monuments of the Hellenistic and Roman periods.
This is the Odeon of Herodes Atticus. An Odeon is a kind of theater in ancient Greece, smaller than the dramatic theater, and roofed over, in which poets and musicians submitted their works for the approval of the public, and contended for prizes.
In modern usage, this became the name of a hall for musical or dramatic performances. Early movie theaters were called Nickelodeons.
This drawing shows a reconstruction of the Odeon of Herodes Atticus.
The cladding, the marble paving stones, the mosaic floors, the white marble rows, and the cedar ceiling of the stage gave the building a magnificent aspect, which impressed the contemporaries.
A stoa is an ancient Greek covered walk or colonnade, usually having columns on one side and a wall on the other. Between the Odeon of Herodes Atticus and the Theater of Dionysos is the Stoa of Eumenes,
built by King Eumenes II of Pergamon, 197 to 160 BC, who not only erected magnificent buildings in his own city, such as the Great Altar of Pergamon, but also sought to do honor to Athens by the building of this Stoa.
The southern slope of the Acropolis was once the cultural center of the ancient city. It includes the ruins of the Theater of Dionysos, the Odeon of Herodes Atticus, and other buildings.
Also, below the Acropolis are remains of the Agora, the ancient market and public meeting place.
Chapter 23. An agora is translatable as marketplace, was an essential part of an ancient Greek polis or city-state. An agora functioned as a marketplace and a forum for the citizens of the polis.
This is the Acropolis and the Agora in Athens, in the 5th century BC.
This is a view of the ancient agora. The Temple of Hephaestus is to the left and the Stoa of Attalus is to the right.
The Temple of Hephaestus is the best preserved ancient Greek temple in the world, but is far less well known than its illustrious neighbor, the Parthenon.
The Stoa of Attalus is recognized as one of the most impressive stoas in the Athenian agora.
The Stoa of Attalus was built by, and named after, King Attalus II of Pergamon, who ruled between 159 BC and 138 BC.
Typical of the Hellenistic age, this stoa was more elaborate and larger than the earlier buildings of ancient Athens.
Northwest of the Acropolis is the Areopagus.
The Areopagus was the site of the main homicide court of Athens.
Here is the Areopagus, as viewed from the Acropolis.
Other major archaeological sites in Athens include the Kerameikos, named for the Kerames, or potters, who inhabited the neighborhood in antiquity.
Located near the Kerameikos is the road that led to Plato's Academy, a site in a suburb of the ancient city where the Greek philosopher Plato instructed his followers.
The Olympian Sanctuary in Athens holds the ruins of a number of ancient temples dedicated to the gods, including the Temple of Olympian Zeus.
The Temple of Olympian Zeus was begun in the 6th century BC, but was not completed until the reign of the Emperor Hadrian in the 2nd century AD. It was the largest temple in Greece.
The Temple of Olympian Zeus is located just south of the National Gardens.
The Panathenaic Stadium, used for athletic competitions during the ancient festival of Panathenaea, was restored for the first modern Olympic Games in 1896.
Roman period sites in Athens.
Among Roman period sites in Athens are the Roman Agora.
Hadrian's Arch.
Hadrian's Library, built in 132 AD by the Emperor Hadrian.
And the Tower of the Winds, which is decorated with images of the winds of the 8 main directions.
Medieval period sites in Athens.
A few medieval churches survive from the period in which Athens was a provincial capital of the Byzantine or Eastern Roman Empire.
The most notable of these churches include the Church of Panagia Gorgopakous
and the Church of Aegean Theater.
The Athens Greek Orthodox Cathedral was constructed in a Neo-Byzantine style in the 19th century, using material from demolished medieval churches.
Much of Athens was rebuilt in the 19th century, after Greece won its independence from the Ottoman Empire. After World War II, another period of rebuilding began as the city's population rapidly expanded.
New suburbs emerged. The seacoast was developed, and hotels and villas sprang up everywhere to accommodate the growing tourism industry.
By the late 20th century, the city's traditional 1- and 2-story homes had largely given way to 6-story apartment complexes, and busy thoroughfares had replaced the old tree-lined streets.
At the heart of the modern city is Syntagma, or Constitution Square, located east of the Acropolis.
Important areas in the center of Athens are the Plaka, Syntagma, and Monastiriki.
Syntagma Square is across the street from the Syntagma, the Greek Parliament building.
Syntagma Square is bordered by the National Parliament building, originally a royal palace, completed in 1842 for King Otto I. Nearby is the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, which features a daily changing of the guard.
Several of the city's principal hotels, and the offices of major banks and airline companies, also face Syntagma Square.
This is Syntagma Square.
Behind the Parliament building is the National Gardens, a public park that is a popular place to stroll.
Within the gardens is the magnificent Zappian Megaron, built in 1888.
The Zappian Megaron is an international exhibition center, built in the Neoclassical style.
Here is the downtown section of Athens showing Syntagma Square, and the major downtown streets of Academias, Panepistiminou, and Stadinou going from the Syntagma Square area to Omonia Square.
The commercial heart of Athens is in this area bordered by Armou, Academias, and Athenas, with Syntagma Square and Omonia Square at either end.
Major metro stations and transfer points on the Athens Metro subway, Attiko Metro, Athens Metro, are at Syntagma Square, Omonia Square, and Monastiriki.
The green line goes out to Piraeus, and the blue line goes to the Athens airport.
The main business streets of modern Athens, Academias, Panepistiminou, and Stadinou, run between Syntagma Square and Omonia Square.
Omonia Square is perhaps the busiest intersection in Athens, with a convergence of 8 streets.
A major metro station and transfer point is located at Omonia Square.
Academias Street is named after Plato's Philosophical Academy of Athens, which was sacred to ancient Athenians. It is a major street in Athens.
About halfway between Syntagma Square and Omonia Square is a large complex of 3 prominent buildings along Panepistiminou Street.
North of Syntagma Square are called the Neoclassical Trilogy of the city of Athens. They are the Academy of Sciences, the University of Athens, and the National Library.
The center building of this 19th century neoclassical trilogy is the University of Athens.
This is the National Academy, with Apollo and Athena on the columns, and Socrates and Plato seated in front.
These buildings of the National Academy were completed between 1864 and 1902.
This is Market Day in downtown Athens.
The Plaka is the oldest residential area in Athens. With its narrow winding streets, the Plaka retains the older character of the city, and it is home to many restaurants, shops, art galleries, and cafes.
The older section of Athens, the Plaka, is between the Acropolis and Syntagma Square.
The area around the monastiriki, meaning little monastery, church and square was the heart of the city during the long years of Turkish rule, and the location of the Grand Bazaar.
The monastiriki district has a popular flea market.
Favorite sightseeing spots in Athens include Lycabettus Hill, the highest point in the city.
A short railway carries passengers to the top of Lycabettus Hill.
Athens has many cultural and educational institutions.
The Acropolis Museum is an archaeological museum, focused on the findings of the archaeological site of the Acropolis of Athens. The museum was built to house every artifact from the Greek Bronze Age to Roman and Byzantine Greece.
The National Archaeological Museum houses one of the world's greatest collections of ancient Greek art and artifacts from a variety of archaeological locations around Greece.
The Byzantine Museum is one of the few museums in Europe concentrating exclusively on Byzantine art, and displays an outstanding collection of icons, mosaics, and tapestries.
The Archaeological Museum of Keramikis has a noted collection of ancient Greek ceramics and sculpture. And the Museum of Cyclandic Art has objects dating back between 3200 and 2000 BC. As well as later examples of ancient art.
An unusual feature of the city's subway system is the Metro Museum. The museum uses major subway stations to exhibit ancient artworks, structures, and objects discovered during the excavation of the subway.
More recent artworks are found at the National Art Gallery in Alexandros Soutsis Museum.
This is the National Art Gallery and the Alexandros Soutsis Museum.
The Binaki Museum contains objects and artworks covering Greek history from ancient to modern times, along with other items from around the world.
The National Historical Museum includes many exhibits on the Greek War of Independence and more recent Greek history.
Older parts of the city were replaced with modern buildings beginning in the 1950s. Throughout the second half of the 20th century, Athens continued to grow rapidly, producing urban sprawl and traffic congestion.
Serious air pollution, largely from automobiles, posed health problems, and damaged several of the city's ancient monuments.
This is the Greek Parliament building.
Chapter 30. The first modern Olympic Games were held in Athens in the summer of 1896 to promote a more peaceful world, in the spirit of the ancient Olympic Games.
The ancient Olympics had taken place at Olympia west of Athens every 4 years from 776 BC until the late 4th century AD, when they were criticized as a pagan religious festival and banned by Christian Roman Emperor Theodosius I. The
site of the ancient Olympic Games was a sanctuary consisting of temples and buildings to honor the mythological gods of ancient Greece.
The games began with a ceremony and sacrifice to the gods. The statue of Zeus at Olympia is one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world.
The Parthenon Stadium in Athens hosted the first Olympic Games of the modern era in 1896.
The Parthenon Stadium, in Greek, Panathenaico Stadio, meaning Stadium of all the Athenians, is also known as Kalimmermero, which means made of fine marble. Some also call it the Olympic Stadium.
Athens was the host of the 2004 Summer Olympic Games.
This is the 2004 Summer Olympics opening ceremony in the Athens Olympic Stadium.
The Athens Olympic Sports Complex, centerpiece of the 2004 Summer Olympic Games, is in a northern suburb of Athens.
Athenians welcomed the Olympics as an opportunity to modernize their city's transportation systems and infrastructure, as well as a way to raise the international profile of Athens and to highlight its cultural riches.
The complex, shown here under construction, Contains stadiums, indoor and outdoor swimming pools, a tennis center, a cycling velodrome, and other venues.
Despite the many difficulties Athens faced in preparing for the event, the 28th Summer Olympic Games took place on time, and as planned in August 2004, with few problems. Olympic officials, athletes, and fans hailed the Games as a major success.
Air pollution is a major problem for Athens. It is caused by a combination of factors, including the large number of manufacturing industries in the city, a dense population, a lack of green spaces, and the fact that Athens is the hub of the nation's transportation network.
Hills surrounding Athens compound the problem by trapping the polluted air and preventing it from moving away. The high level of air pollution in Athens threatens human health, as well as the city's historic monuments.
In 2001, Greece adopted the euro.
Greece became the 10th member of the European Union in 1981, and until 2008 had experienced a remarkable and sustained economic growth.
Widespread investments in industrial enterprises and heavy infrastructure, as well as funds from the European Union, and growing revenues from tourism, shipping, and a fast-growing service sector, had raised the country's standard of living to unprecedented levels.
The Greek economic crisis started with the worldwide recession. That started with the Wall Street crash in 2008.
How did Greece get to this point? Greece became the focus of Europe's debt crisis after the Wall Street crash of 2008, causing a major economic recession worldwide. Greece admitted in October 2009 that it has been understating its deficit figures for years.
This produced alarms about the soundness of Greek finances, and this shut out Greece from borrowing in the financial markets. By the spring of 2010, it was veering toward bankruptcy, which threatened to set off a new financial crisis, with a debt-to-GDP ratio of a staggering 130%.
To avert calamity, the International Monetary Fund, the European Central Bank, and the European Commission issued 2 bailouts for Greece, which totaled more than €240 billion, or about $264 billion.
The bailouts came with austerity conditions requiring budget cuts and tax increases. They also required Greece to overhaul its economy by streamlining the government, ending tax evasion, and making Greece an easier place to do business.
Despite the billions in bailouts, Greece's economic problems remain. The economy has shrunk by a quarter in 5 years, and unemployment is...
The government under Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras, elected in September of 2015, still has a staggering debt load that it cannot begin to pay down unless a recovery takes hold.
Chapter 32. Will it be hot, or will it be cold in Athens?
Here are the average high and low temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit throughout the year in Athens.
Here are the average high and low temperatures in degrees Celsius throughout the year in Athens. Rainfall in Athens.
Here is the average rainfall in inches throughout the year in Athens. We see that the season with the most rain is in the months of October through March.
Here is the average rainfall in millimeters throughout the year in Athens. Here is the average number of days per month, with precipitation, throughout the year in Athens.
Recommended videos, Greece.
Recommended video, Things to Do in Athens, Greece, Top 12.
Recommended video, Top 10 Things to Do in Athens, Greece.
Recommended video, 10 Best Places to Visit in Greece, Travel Video.
Recommended video, Ancient Greece 101 National Geographic.
Recommended video, Geography Now. Greece.
YouTube navigation. Table of contents, Greece.
Thanks for watching. Please watch some more of my great videos.